What's up, guys? My name is Crescent, and today let's go over the step-by-step process of how you can start selling on Amazon in 2021. The process in itself isn't hard at all. In fact, pretty much anyone can set up an Amazon account and start selling. However, in order to be successful, there are a few steps and strategies that you need to follow, which I'll cover in this video from A to Z. So this is going to be the most complete and comprehensive step-by-step guide to walk you through from beginning to end. So it may be a case of information overload to absorb all in a single sitting. So feel free to bookmark this video and refer to the timestamps in the video description so you can jump to a specific chapter at a later time. All right, so first of all, what is Amazon FBA and private label? Amazon FBA stands for Fulfillment by Amazon. This is a service that Amazon offers its sellers where all you have to do is send in the products that you want to sell to Amazon's fulfillment centers. And when you sell a product, Amazon will do all of the order fulfillment, picking and packing, shipping, and customer service for you. It really is a hands-off business model. Private label describes how you're going to sell your products on Amazon. Private label products are generic products, meaning they're not patented or trademarked in any way, where you manufacture and put your own brand name on each product to sell as your own under your own private label brand. There's other ways to sell on Amazon too, such as arbitrage and wholesale, but we're not going to discuss these types in this video. Private label is the most hands-off and scalable business model to follow, and that's what I do. Okay, so to give you an idea of how much money you'll need to properly start an Amazon private label business, you can expect somewhere in the neighborhood of around $3,000 to $5,000. Now, if you heard that you can start an Amazon business with $500 to $1,000, just realize that that's highly unlikely. And if you want to know the details and breakdown of all the startup costs, I do have a video on this which goes into detail on it, and I'll post a link in the video description below. And one more detail before we get into it, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. I'd really appreciate it, and it really is a lot of fun to watch that thumb change colors, and it really does help this video out to get it in front of more people just like you wanting to learn more about starting their own Amazon journey. So thank you. And speaking of starting your Amazon journey, you should be aware that this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme. It will require a lot of your time and dedication. And if all goes well, you can expect to see profits after 3 to 6 months. So if you're expecting to make 5 figures within the first couple of months, I suggest you manage your expectations. Okay, so first things first. You need to see if you're even allowed to sell on Amazon. For the most part, anyone can sell in any Amazon marketplace from anywhere in the world. However, Amazon does have a few restrictions. Amazon has a published list of countries that are allowed to sell on Amazon. Countries not on this list are not allowed to sell on Amazon. Most of these countries are in Africa, where a lot of scams and fraud originate from, so you should be okay. However, if you don't live in one of these approved countries, you'll need to set up a business in one of the approved countries, and doing that is beyond the scope of this video. Amazon also has a list of approved countries where they'll support bank disbursements from, meaning if you don't have a bank account from a country on this list, Amazon will not be able to pay you your disbursements from your sales. There are workarounds though, which we'll cover later. All right, now with that out of the way, you'll need to decide how you want to sell on Amazon based on taxes. Amazon doesn't require you to have a registered business to sell on Amazon. So if you do want to sell as an individual, you can. You'd just be filing all of your revenue as personal income, and you wouldn't have any tax benefits or liability protection that a business can offer. However, by registering a business with your state or country, depending on the type of business you form, you typically get to enjoy tax benefits, and you're not personally liable for anything that may happen with your business. This can range from a sole proprietorship to an LLC. I recommend speaking to a professional to see what the best option is for you. The next step is to create your Amazon seller account. I see a lot of people hold off on this step for whatever reason. However, I highly suggest doing it first, because if for whatever reason you cannot get approved to sell on Amazon, then moving forward with this business is moot. Okay, so there's 2 seller account types that you can choose from. There's the individual seller account and the professional seller account. The individual account is free. However, you have to pay a fee each time a sale is made, whereas with the professional account, it costs $39.99 a month. And as you can see here, if you sell more than 40 units per month, it's not worth it to have an individual account. You also don't get access to all of the selling and advertising features with the individual account. What I suggest is to get the professional account right away so you can get used to the system and all of the features. One thing to note, if you do decide to register a business and sell on Amazon as an individual for tax purposes, that individual has nothing to do with choosing an individual or professional seller account. Now, a couple of pro tips when signing up for your seller account. I suggest using a separate email account for your seller account than your personal Amazon account that you buy stuff with. Also, make sure that you use your real information, as the documents that you have to submit to verify your identity do need to match. The name and addresses need to match, and if they don't, it can create delays in the approval process. Also, make sure that the address is a real address that can accept mail. So if Amazon does send you a mail verification to verify your address, that you can receive it. Amazon is also doing phone verifications now, so make sure your phone number is valid. Also, be sure that your banking details match your name as the primary account holder. If you don't have a bank account in one of the approved countries, like I mentioned earlier, you can use a service like Payoneer.com to set up a bank account and credit card. You do also need a valid credit card too, so Amazon can charge any money that you owe them to it. So make sure you have that ready. Now, I've set up accounts for myself and they were all approved within 24 hours. However, I know of other people that have had difficulty with getting their new accounts verified. This is usually because the documents they submitted were hard to read, didn't have matching details, or is of the wrong type. Don't be discouraged or afraid if you do get rejected. Just fix the problem and keep trying. All right, the next step is to find a viable product to sell. Back in the day, finding viable products had far more risk and was more of a gamble because there wasn't any tools available to gather any real tangible data on the product or niche. Nowadays, there's powerful tools available that make doing product research far easier and faster. But before we dive into product research, one important step that a lot of people fail to do is to put together a plan. Every successful business starts with having a proper plan. Without one, you have no direction and no idea of what your goal is and what you need to do to achieve that goal. And when it comes to finding viable products, you need to know what your goal is and what you need to achieve in order to meet that goal. In this case, the goal is how much profit you realistically want to make each month, and then figure out what you need to do in order to achieve that. For example, if you want to make $3,000 per month, how many items do you need to sell every month? Well, to figure that out, you need to know how much the profit margin is for each item that you sell. And since you don't know what you're going to sell yet, you'll have to make an educated guess. What I recommend is aiming for a minimum of a $5 profit margin, ideally $10. A lot of people would prefer to use percentages when they talk about profit margin and will tell you to aim for something around 30 to 50% profit margins. I don't like to use percentages because it's all relative. If your product costs $1 and you have a 50% profit margin, then that means you're making 50 cents on each sale. So in order to make $3,000 per month, you'd have to sell 6,000 units. That's 200 units a day. What's more realistic is selling 5 or 10 units a day. And at $10 profit per unit, selling 10 items a day will hit your goal of $3,000. Make sense? Now, these numbers will come in handy again later. That's why it's important to have a plan first so you know what these numbers are for your situation. All right, so the product research tool that I use and recommend is called Jungle Scout. The two primary tools you'll be using are the product database and the Chrome extension. The product database allows you to find items in Amazon's marketplace that match specific search criteria that you set. The Chrome extension allows you to quickly and easily analyze niches that you found by providing all the data in a convenient window for you to analyze. I also have an exclusive promotion for Jungle Scout where you can save a ton of money, and I'll leave a link to it in the video description below. The product database is a great place to start looking for viable products. The hardest part of doing product research is actually the product discovery process. It's impossible for anyone to just sit around all day and dream up different product ideas to do research on. With the product database, you can find thousands of different product opportunities simply by changing different search parameters. If you're planning to sell in the US marketplace, choose US. Then pick the categories you want to find products to sell in. I personally only choose specific categories, as you can see here. I avoid certain categories because, like clothing and shoes, there's way too many variations and returns to deal with. Electronics break all the time and can be hard to use. I avoid anything that you ingest, put in or on your body, like lotions and creams, because I just don't want to have the liability in case someone gets hurt or injured. Toys and games is way too competitive, and the life cycle of those products is way too short. I suggest sticking with standard size products. Oversized can be a logistical nightmare with extremely high fees, and leave all the seller types checked. I suggest setting the price range between $15 and $30 to start. I wouldn't go any less than $15 because if you subtract your manufacturing costs and Amazon fees, there won't be any money left for profit. You can use the rule of thirds here. Typically, 1/3 will go to manufacturing, 1/3 is the fees, and the last third is your profit. So at $15, you can make at least $5. Now, I wouldn't go any higher than $50 as products that cost more, buyers will typically put more thought and research into it, and it no longer becomes an impulse buy. Set the maximum reviews between 75 to 125. Reviews is how we determine how competitive a niche is. You want to find niches that have low competition. So niches where most of the products have a lot of reviews will be much more difficult and expensive to break into. Set your minimum monthly sales to 300. That's a good starting point based on your planning and target sales and profit goals that I mentioned earlier if you're looking for products with a $10 profit margin. And set the maximum weight to 2 pounds so the product isn't considered oversized. Otherwise, the fees will be much higher. Now keep in mind that none of these search criteria are set in stone. You can play around with them to find different products. For example, you can set a maximum review rating to like 3.5 so you can specifically look for products that are selling well in spite of the fact that they have poor reviews. Now, when we click search, Jungle Scout will pull up all of the products that match our search criteria. You might notice that Jungle Scout pulled up a ton of matching listings, and it may be overwhelming. If that's the case, you can always tighten up the search filters to reduce the number of search results. A pro tip, I actually like to work backwards through the results as everyone starts on page 1. I like to find products where other people aren't looking, and that's the key to finding viable products. Now, what I do is I browse through these listings looking for ones that catch my eye. Products that I don't immediately recognize or are strange and out of the ordinary are the best ones to look for. So when you find a product that does catch your eye, like this ceramic spoon rest set, I'll figure out what I believe the main keyword is so that I can do a search on Amazon for this product. In this case, I believe the main keyword is ceramic spoon rest set. So head over to Amazon, make sure all departments is selected, and do a search for ceramic spoon rest set. Make sure that the majority of the listings that come up are indeed the same product that you're looking at. Otherwise, you're using the wrong keyword for the search. In this case, it looks like it's right, so we can pull up the Jungle Scout Chrome extension. Now, going into detail about how to actually analyze niches is beyond the scope of this video, but I'll go over a few of the key points. First, you can see that the Chrome extension has pulled up all of the details for the top listings in the search results. It's important at this point that you do not sort these listings and rearrange them. You want to analyze niches with the listings in their organic order. This is because these top listings are the listings you'll be competing against. So you don't want to sort these listings by sales or revenue or whatever that I see a lot of people doing. You also want to ignore the sponsored listings. These are the listings placed here based on the PPC advertising system. You can see these listings with the SP logo next to them. You can actually turn these off so they don't show up at all in the settings by clicking on Menu and turning off sponsored products. Now, by analyzing the data such as the price, sales volume, revenue, and reviews, you can determine if the niche meets the criteria you set out in your plan and you're able to hit your profit and sales goals. For example, do most of the listings have 300 or more sales per month? Is the revenue high enough that you can make $3,000 per month? One way you can do this is by using the Amazon FBA Calculator. Grab the ASIN of one of the competitors. You can find the ASIN in the URL. It always starts with a B0. Copy and paste it here, and you can see that it pulls up the product details for you as far as the size and weight in order to calculate the proper fees. Now enter the sale price, how much it costs to ship to Amazon, and how much it costs you to manufacture. And when you hit calculate, it'll tell you what your profit is. You also need to make sure that the competition isn't too high or if the niche is saturated. You can tell if the competition is too high if the majority of the listings have more than 125 reviews. And if it's saturated, if most of the listings are new based on the first available date. You also want to make sure that the niche isn't brand dominated. That means that there's no brands that have more than 3 or 4 listings or more in the top 10. Again, this is just the basics. I'll leave a link to how to properly do product research in the video description below that goes into detail on this. Now, if you find a viable product that meets all of the product research criteria, you want to start product tracking it in order to verify the sales velocity. This is an important step because the sales velocity that you see here in the Chrome extension is just an estimate. You need to make sure that the daily sales you're seeing here is consistent day after day. For example, when you see a listing that has 1,000 sales in a month, you don't know if they sold 33 units every day or if they just sold 1,000 units on the first day and then nothing for the rest of the month. This is where product tracking will help you verify that. You can do this by adding products to a product tracker like Jungle Scout has. And the product tracker will give you the sales history that you can analyze. You can also use what's called the 999 cart method, which is a very accurate hack to give you exact sales data. And I'll leave a link in the video description below on how you can do that. One important tip here is when you're analyzing niches, always analyze the data. Never base your decision on the averages or the opportunity score that you see here. Only use them as a reference because these are averages. One single listing that has very high or very low sales or reviews, for example, can throw off the entire average. All right, now, while you're analyzing products, you want to also keep in mind how you can differentiate it. You can't just sell the exact same thing as every other seller and expect to do well. By differentiating, you're giving yourself a competitive advantage. Otherwise, you can only compete based on price, and you never want to do that because it'll always end up being a race to the bottom where everyone keeps lowering the price until no one makes any money. You always want to differentiate and offer a high quality premium product so that you have a competitive advantage and that you can charge more. There's several ways you can differentiate. A method that I like to use is to look in the reviews of other sellers and see what people are complaining about. You can get an excellent idea of how to fix a problem, add a feature, or improve it. I also like to differentiate by bundling. This is adding a small bonus item to the product that doesn't add much costs, but adds a lot of value for the buyer. You can get bundling ideas by looking at the frequently bought together section in the listings or by using your own intuition. Just make sure that you're not pairing 2 main items together. The bundled item should be a small bonus that the buyer is essentially getting for free, but should make sense to pair together. For example, if I'm selling wrapping paper, I could bundle it with a small roll of tape. However, bundling the wrapping paper with Christmas tree ornaments wouldn't make any sense. Another way to differentiate is by having a better listing. Sometimes you'll run across a viable niche where all of the listings are extremely poor or have poor reviews. However, sales are still really good. In those cases, you can dominate the niche by simply having a better listing with better professional photos and copy. In my opinion, you should always have a top-notch quality listing anyways, but I've seen some niches where all the listings are terrible. Now, beyond making sure that the product meets all of the research criteria and you've identified a method to differentiate, there's also a few things you need to consider. You want to make sure that the product is small and lightweight. Ideally, you want the product to be able to fit inside a shoebox and weighs less than a pound. Otherwise, the shipping and Amazon fees will be much higher. Also make sure that the product is easy to manufacture. The more complicated it is, like having a ton of pieces, moving parts, or requires assembly, you can have quality control issues as well as a much higher manufacturing cost, especially if you want to differentiate and it requires retooling or new molds. I also suggest staying away from products that are difficult to operate, require instructions, can break easily, electronic devices, or anything that can be a liability where someone can get hurt, like food, lotions, creams, or anything that would go in or on your body. I also don't recommend products that people often return, like clothing or toys. It's just not worth the risk or getting bad reviews. And lastly, one of the most important product research mistakes I see people making is not making sure ahead of time that they're allowed to sell the product in the first place. First, Amazon has a list of restricted products that you can't sell without prior approval, like supplements, electronics, hazardous items, and medical devices, just to name a few, as you can see here. They also have a list of prohibited products that you can't sell, period. A good way to check if a product you're interested in selling has any restrictions or not is to get the ASIN of a competitor's listing and then contact seller support and ask them if there's any restrictions. You can also create your own test product listing for that product and enter all of the details for it and see if any errors come up indicating that there are restrictions. But keep in mind though, that doing it this way isn't a guarantee that if there's no errors that pop up, that you're okay to sell it. Sometimes the system doesn't flag your listing right away, and you might end up selling for a few days or weeks, and then suddenly your listing will get flagged for selling a restricted or prohibited item. So make sure you do your due diligence so you don't end up investing in a product that you can't sell on Amazon. The other problem I see people run into is selling a product that's patented or trademarked. This is a serious issue that I see a lot of people not take seriously. Violating someone's intellectual property is a serious offense, and you can get sued for everything that you have. Always make sure that the product isn't patented or trademarked. And you can do that by checking on uspto.gov or on Google Patents by doing a search for the main keywords for that product. Keep in mind that just because you didn't find anything doesn't mean there isn't a patent or trademark. It could be just that the owner filed it under a different name or keyword that you weren't searching for. If you're not sure, hire a professional patent attorney to do a search for you. I also see all the time people complaining that they see other sellers selling the product, but how come they can't? It doesn't matter if other people are selling it. They may have purchased the products legally or they got permission from the IP owner to sell it. If you can't prove that you did the same, then your products will be considered counterfeit. So do your due diligence and stay away from patented and trademarked products. All right, so now that you've found a product, you need to find a supplier to manufacture it. The most cost-effective place to get your products made is overseas in China. You can use a website called Alibaba to find suppliers. Alibaba is basically a huge database of manufacturers of pretty much anything that you can think of. You can just do a search for the product you want to sell, and you'll get a list of all of the suppliers that manufacture them. What you want to do is make sure you select Trade Assurance and Verified Supplier, and then contact 15 to 20 or more suppliers that manufacture the product that you want to sell. So for example, if you wanted to sell wooden soap dishes, then I would contact 15 to 20 suppliers that make wooden soap dishes from this list. You can consider the price and the MOQ, which is the minimum order quantity that you see here, if you want to filter some of the suppliers out. Like this supplier requires a minimum of 1,000 pieces, whereas this one only requires 100. Although generally, the more you order, the lower the unit cost is. I have a supplier contact email template that you can use, which you can customize to suit your product needs and email to all of the suppliers. Make sure you use it because you want to look and sound professional, and the template has all of the initial details and questions that you want to include and ask, so there's minimal back and forth with a supplier. I'll leave a link in the description for you to download it. The reason I suggest contacting 15 to 20 or more suppliers is because most of them aren't going to respond. Some will respond right away, whereas others may respond in a few days. Keep in mind that there is a time zone difference too, although some suppliers do have agents that work locally in North America and are available during the same waking hours. If and how the suppliers reply to your initial email is the first step I would use to vet the suppliers. Suppliers that don't reply, take a long time to reply, don't answer all the questions, or have difficulty communicating in English, I would be cautious working with. I suggest only working with suppliers that reply promptly, answer all of the questions thoroughly, and are easy to understand. With those suppliers, Keep an Excel spreadsheet with their contact information and what the quotes are so you can see what your options are, as well as how you can use these different quotes to negotiate better prices between the suppliers. Now, once you've narrowed down the suppliers to your top 2, 3, or 4, you'll want to order samples of the product from them so you can examine the quality. Now, don't underestimate the importance of doing this. I've seen where the quality of the production units were not even close to what someone expected them to be based solely on the photos. So samples aren't that expensive. They typically cost around $50 to $100 each. What you're paying for is the shipping cost. The samples themselves are usually free, and it's a small price to pay instead of finding out later that the quality is poor after you already invested thousands of dollars. The thing is, most suppliers will reimburse you the cost of the sample if you end up ordering from them. Now, once you have an idea of the quality of the products, you can further negotiate with all of the suppliers, or if you have any changes you want to make, you can communicate that to them at that time. Keep in mind that everything is negotiable, so if one supplier is offering you something that another isn't, you can try to negotiate to get better terms for yourself. You just have to be willing to walk away if they're not willing to meet your requests. Also, keep in mind that sometimes the best price may not be your best choice. Consider how well they communicate, the quality of the products, how quickly they can complete your order, the price on future orders. For example, the initial cost of your first small order may be a bit higher, but they're willing to offer you a better deal on your future order when you place a larger order, etc., etc. You can use all of these metrics to help you vet the suppliers and narrow them down to a single supplier. A pro tip here is when you initially contact the suppliers, it'll most likely be through the Alibaba messaging system. Most suppliers will probably ask you to continue the conversations outside of Alibaba on Skype or WeChat, and that's totally normal. The Alibaba messaging system is pretty cumbersome to use, so just make sure that everything you've negotiated and discussed outside of Alibaba's messaging system, that you accurately document in your purchase order agreement so that Alibaba has a record of it, since none of the conversations are recorded in their chat system. Now, speaking of purchase agreements, I also have a purchase agreement template that you can download and use. I highly suggest you use it because it covers everything you need to include in a purchase agreement, from what each party is responsible for to all the terms and conditions. You can easily tailor it to suit your needs, and I'll leave a link to it in the video description below. Now, once all of that is said and done, your supplier will want you to pay for your order before they'll start manufacturing. Don't be surprised if they want you to pay 100% of it up front. However, that wouldn't be very smart in your case. Typical payment terms are 30% upfront and 70% upon completion, or 50% upfront and the other 50% upon completion. Just whatever you do, don't do 100% upfront. You also want to make sure that you're protecting yourself with how you make your payment. Do not pay using a wire transfer or a bank transfer. You have absolutely no protection. Once your money leaves your account, it's gone. So if something goes wrong, you have no means of recourse. What I suggest doing is using PayPal or a credit card to pay for your order, so if something does happen, you can always file a dispute through PayPal or with your credit card company. Ideally, I recommend doubling up. So use PayPal and then setting up your credit card as the payment method. That way, if for whatever reason something goes wrong and PayPal denies your claim, you can still file a claim with your credit card company. Now, once your supplier has completed manufacturing, one important step is to have a product inspection done. I can't emphasize how important this step is. There's been many times when the quality of the final production unit doesn't match the quality of the samples, or there was some miscommunication somewhere and the products weren't made correctly. Always have an inspection done. And always have the inspection done before the products leave their factory. I've seen people try to save some money and have the products shipped to their home so they can inspect it themselves. Do not do that. If something is wrong, the logistics and cost to ship the products back to China will be prohibitive. If you have the inspection done before the products leave your supplier, the supplier can't pass off any liability. And again, use the purchase order template I have because there's a clause in there stating that a product inspection will be done at your expense. However, if the inspection fails, your supplier will need to fix the problems and then pay for the second inspection. Now, in some instances where the product is extremely simple and easy to manufacture, you could just have your supplier send you detailed photos of your product at varying stages of the production so you can verify that they are being manufactured correctly. Or you can do a Skype or FaceTime call so you can overlook the process. You'd have to decide if it's worth it to you to get an actual inspection done or not based on the risks versus reward. A typical inspection costs around $150 to $300 depending on what you want done. And I'll leave a link to an inspection company that I recommend in the video description below. Okay, so once you have your product taken care of, another thing to consider is how your product is going to be packaged and your branding. Now, I would ask your supplier what their standard packaging is for the product and decide if that's what you want. If the packaging is in some plain generic cardboard box or poly bag, you might want to repackage it into something custom designed and more decorative. By creating a custom designed package, you can add more value to your product without much added cost. At the same time, you can also have your brand or logo printed on the packaging to help build your brand and its credibility. When it comes to your brand, I suggest choosing a brand name that is generic and not niche specific. Something niche specific locks you into a specific type of product. For example, if you started selling soap dishes and your brand was Bath and Body Works, it wouldn't make any sense if you started selling camping hammocks with that brand name. So something generic and doesn't sound niche specific would make more sense. I also suggest hiring a logo and package designer to help create your package design and logo for you. You can find really good designers on Fiverr.com. And at the same time, you can have them incorporate the Amazon barcode and any other required markings into the package design, such as the country of origin. Now, a pro tip is to also have them design an insert card they can include inside the package. The insert card can thank the buyer for their purchase and ask them to leave you a review. Just make sure that the insert card doesn't violate any of Amazon's insert card guidelines. I have a separate video on how to create insert cards, which I'll leave a link in the video description below if you want to check it out. So here's where buying the top competitors' products would come in handy. You can see what they're doing with their products, package design, and insert cards. Now, speaking of branding, Amazon doesn't require you to have a registered brand or trademark to sell on Amazon. However, if you do register your brand, you get added benefits such as access to brand registry and A+ content, which means you can add videos to your listing and have much richer content in your listing description, including photos. And because your brand is registered, you can get access to tools to help prevent and remove listing hijackers. You can register your trademark yourself directly through the uspto.gov website, but that typically takes around 6 to 9 months to get registered. What I suggest doing is going through Amazon's IP Accelerator program. It does cost a bit more, but you get access to brand registry and all of the benefits right away instead of having to wait the 6 to 9 months. Okay, so I've also been waiting for you to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. If you haven't already done so, please do. It would really help me out a lot, and it'll tell the YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed the video and that it should recommend it to more people. So once your product is manufactured, you need to get it shipped from your supplier's factory overseas to Amazon's fulfillment center. This can be a tedious process, so I highly suggest that you hire a freight forwarder to handle this for you. Arranging the shipment and filling out all the paperwork must all be done correctly, otherwise your shipment can be lost, held up somewhere, incur penalties, or sent back to your supplier. You can find a freight forwarder on a website called Freightos.com. And if you have the shipment details from your supplier, like how many shipping cartons there are and what the size and weight of each carton is, you can also get a shipping quote on Freightos. You can get quotes for shipping by air or by sea. And keep in mind that shipping by air is the most expensive. However, it's also the quickest. Shipments typically take 7 to 10 business days, whereas shipping by sea is the cheaper method, but can take 3 to 8 weeks. What I suggest is for your first order, which is usually pretty small, ship it by air so you can start selling right away. Then on future orders, you can either ship the entire shipment by sea or split up the shipment by shipping some by air and the bulk of it by sea once you understand your sales velocity and you can manage your inventory to accommodate the 3 to 8 week shipping time. Be aware that during COVID-19, Everything from manufacturing to customs and shipping are extremely delayed. One thing to consider is to ask your supplier if they're willing to ship the products for you. Some may not, and some may only ship to the local port. So ask them and see what they're willing to do for you, and if they offer what's called DDP shipping. DDP is an Incoterm, which means they will arrange the entire shipment and take responsibility for it from their factory to Amazon's fulfillment center. You just need to pay your supplier. Doing this can cut out the freight forwarder and can save on time dealing with logistics and costs. So get quotes from your supplier and from several freight forwarders and see which option will work best for you. Now, before you can physically ship your products though, Amazon requires you to create a shipping plan so that they know what to expect when your shipment arrives at their fulfillment center and who it belongs to. You can create a shipping plan in Seller Central. A couple of key points to note when creating a shipping plan is to make sure you choose individually packed versus case packed. Individually packed means inside each shipping carton, you have a mixed number of products. Whereas case packed means inside every carton, it's the same product and there's the exact same number of that same product. What I suggest is to always choose individually packed, even if your product is case packed. This is because if for whatever reason, your supplier packaged your shipment in different sized cartons or put a different number of units inside the cartons, if you choose case packed, you won't have the ability to enter different sized shipping cartons. Also, make sure that you choose merchant for who labels. This means you are going to put the Amazon barcode on all of your units, not Amazon. You meaning your supplier. If you don't have your supplier do it, you can have Amazon do it for you, but they'll charge you a 30-cent per unit fee. You also want to make sure that you enter the correct size and weight of your unit and cartons in the correct place. If you enter the shipping carton size and weight as the unit size and weight, it will throw off your FBA fee calculation and your product will most likely end up being classified as oversized. So make sure you don't mix those up. One thing I want to point out is you're most likely going to always choose SBD shipping here unless you're shipping a huge shipment where you're taking up an entire container. Also, Amazon offers deeply discounted shipping rates for domestic shipments if you use their partnered carrier program. Because they do so much shipping volume, they have agreements with UPS and FedEx to get massive discounts for domestic shipments. So talk to your freight forwarder and see if they can take advantage of that for the domestic part of your shipment. A pro tip, you can give your freight forwarder access to your Seller Central account so they can create the shipping plan for you. Now, once you've completed the shipping plan, you can then go ahead and print the shipping labels, which will have the Amazon Fulfillment Center address on them. You can actually download the shipping labels and email them to your supplier so they can put them on the shipping cartons. If there's more than one carton, make sure the correct labels go on the corresponding cartons. All right, and now on to creating your product listing. If you've already created a test listing to make sure there wasn't any restrictions, then you can go ahead and just edit that listing. Otherwise, you'll have to create a new listing. Now, when creating a listing, make sure you click on adding a product not sold on Amazon. Scroll down and enter the product in the search, and Amazon will find the correct category for your product. Select the category, and now you'll need to fill out all the details for your product listing. Anything in red or a tab with the red exclamation mark means there are required fields that you haven't completed yet or have incorrect data. As you can see here, the Save button isn't clickable, and that's because of these errors in red. So make sure you have all of these fields filled in at a minimum so that the Save button is clickable. One thing to note, in order to create a listing, you need to purchase a UPC barcode. Amazon's UPC barcode policy states that you need to buy your barcodes directly from GS1 or you risk having your listings shut down. You can buy your barcodes from third-party sellers like Barcodes Mania or Nationwide Barcodes for around $10 each, which is what I used to do. However, a recent update from GS1 has made it not worthwhile to do so. You can now buy official GS1 barcodes directly from GS1 for $30, and you only need to buy one barcode for your product. And once you enter the UPC barcode into your listing, you'll never need it again. If you want to learn more about barcodes, I'll leave a link in the video description below. Now, when you're creating your title, bullet points, and description, you want to make sure that you're using as many of the most relevant keywords as possible. You can get a list of all the most relevant keywords by using tools like Keyword Inspector or keywordtool.io. But these free options are limited and not very thorough. The best keyword research tool is from Jungle Scout called Keyword Scout. And by entering in the main keyword, you can download a comprehensive list of all of the relevant keywords for your product that you can now use to create your title, bullet points, and description. A pro tip, you can use Keyword Scout to do a reverse back-end keyword search on your competitors' listings and get the keywords they're using. Just grab the ASIN of the top sellers' listings and enter it into Keyword Scout, and you'll get a list of keywords that they're using. And another pro tip, instead of just listing generic features in your bullet points, list 5 benefits and how they help solve a problem for the buyer. People buy products to solve a problem that they're having. So how does your product uniquely solve those issues? A test that I like to use for my bullet points is if I can take my bullet points and place them in a competitor's listing and they'll work for their product, then those bullet points are poor. And one more pro tip. Make sure to fill out the search terms field with keywords from your keyword list that you haven't already used in your listing. The search terms field is also known as the backend keyword list. You can include up to 249 characters in this field to help Amazon's A9 algorithm further index your listing. But as you can see here, it says that you cannot repeat keywords and you can't use competitor brand names and no ASINs. Now, I have a video that goes into detail on how to create an optimized listing. So if you want to learn more about that, I'll leave a link to it in the video description below. Now, when it comes to photos, the quality of your photos will make or break the success of your product. So unless you're a professional product photographer, always hire a professional to take photos of your product. You can find product photographers on Fiverr.com or on Jungle Scout's market. Make sure that you follow Amazon's guidelines too. The main photo must be on a white background and have no text. And to make sure that the zoom feature works, your images need to have a minimum resolution of 1000 by 500 pixels. Most categories will also allow you to upload 9 photos, so make sure you use all of them. However, some categories may only let you upload 7 or less. Also, make sure that your photos easily communicate the benefits and features of your product. Humans are very visual creatures, so we'd rather look at a photo than read a bunch of text. So use lifestyle photos, infographics, comparison charts to show off your product, as well as a clear indication of its physical size and dimensions. All right, and now that your listing is sorted, you're ready to do a product launch. Exciting times. And you know what else is exciting? Smashing the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It helps launch this video through the YouTube universe. Now, one thing I want to point out is that your listing won't be live in the Amazon marketplace until you have inventory in stock. So even if you've got everything done and all of your ducks are in a row and you're ready to go, if Amazon hasn't received your shipment or they haven't processed your shipment yet and your listing says inactive, out of stock, then no one can find your listing in the marketplace yet. So you'll have to wait to start your product launch. So you might be asking, why do we need to do a product launch? Once our listing goes live in the Amazon marketplace, wouldn't people just start buying it? Well, in fact, no, that's not how it works. Amazon ranks listings based primarily on their daily sales velocity. What that means is when someone does a search on Amazon, the listings and the search results are arranged in the order of which listings sell the most each day. Now, the daily sales velocity is the main driving factor, but there are other metrics that influence the rank too, such as the sales history and conversion rate. So because you're launching a brand new product with no sales history, your listing is in no man's land. It'll either be on the last page of the search results, like on page 30 or something, where no one's ever going to look for it, or it may not even show up in the search results at all. So why is this important? It's important to get your listing ranked onto the first page because over 70% of all online sales take place on the first page of the search results. Sales falls off exponentially for each page afterwards. I can hear you asking now, well, if no one can find my listing, how am I going to get sales if I need sales to get my listing ranked in the search results? Well, yeah, you're right. It's a catch-22, a chicken before the egg conundrum. So what can you do? Well, you need to generate sales without relying solely on Amazon's search function. And there's several ways you can do that. You can have your friends and family buy your product, but make sure that they don't leave a review because that's against Amazon's terms of service. You can also promote your product in Facebook groups or on your own Facebook page or with online influencers. You can also do paid ads like on Google and Facebook. Amazon also has its own advertising options that you can use, such as promotions, coupons, and PPC. Promotions is a great way to generate sales by offering your product at a deep discount. Promotions work best when you use a service like Jungle Scout's Jump Send to put your promotion in front of a large community that's actively looking for deals. I suggest offering a discount somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 70% off. Promotions used to work really well when you could offer 80 to 90% off deals, but recently, if you do that, Amazon may see that as rank manipulation, so I don't suggest doing more than 70% off during your product launch. Coupons is another great way to generate sales. These are instant discounts buyers can activate when they see your listing. It also helps with conversions by catching people's eye with the coupon logo. A pro tip here is during the product launch, you want to make sure you're pricing your product competitively so that there's added incentive to buy your product instead of your competitors. What I suggest is starting around 20% higher than the lower end of the price range of your competitors. For example, if the price range for your niche is around $18 to $28, then I suggest setting your price around $20 to $22 during the product launch. You don't want to set the price too high since you don't have any social proof, meaning you don't have any reviews. And you don't want to set your price too low as your product can be perceived as low quality. Now, once your product gains traction and moves up onto the first page of the search results, you can slowly raise the price to your target sale price, as well as stop using the promotions and coupons. And don't expect to be making money during the product launch. With the promotions and coupons, you'll probably be breaking even or even at a slight loss with each sale. This is just part of business that you'll have to get through to get your listing ranked. Now, the best way to generate sales is to use Amazon's PPC advertising system. PPC stands for pay per click. This is Amazon's advertising system where sellers can place bids on keywords to have their ads show up in the search results. These are the listings that you see in the search results that say sponsored. You can find them at the top of the search results, in the middle, and at the bottom, as well as on the product listings themselves. The seller with the highest bid gets the best ad placement, which is of course at the top of the first page. But keep in mind, you're only charged when someone clicks on your ad, not when it's displayed. Now, there are a few different ways you can do PPC campaigns, but the one that works the best is the sponsored products campaign. Within the PPC campaigns, there's actually two ways that you can bid on keywords. You can either do an automatic campaign or a manual campaign. Automatic means Amazon will choose which keywords to match based on the keywords you've used in your listing. This is a good way to get started with PPC as you don't have to do any additional work. Amazon is doing it all for you. Just to quickly walk you through creating a campaign, set the daily budget to what you can afford. I suggest at least $10 to $20. Choose automatic. During the product launch, I recommend dynamic bids up and down. Enter the same name as before, pick your product. I suggest setting the bid slightly higher than the suggested bid. We won't go over the negative keyword section here, and then click on launch. Now, if you want more control over which keywords you want to bid on, you can choose manual targeting. By choosing manual targeting, you can specify a list of keywords you want to bid on. This is where the keyword list you created earlier when you were building your product listing can be used again. Creating the campaign is the same as before, except choose manual. Make sure you choose keyword targeting, then select enter list, then copy and paste your keywords here. Click add words and launch campaign. Now, I actually have a more advanced way of setting up the PPC campaigns that's beyond the scope of this video. So if you want to learn more on how I create and optimize my campaigns for a product launch, I'll leave a link in the description below. Okay, so before we finish up this video, there's two important things I want to cover about product launches. First, when your new product listing goes live, There's actually a short period of time called the honeymoon period where Amazon will give your listing a small boost in the rankings to see how well it will do and if it'll gain any traction. It's important that you take advantage of this honeymoon period by making sure that your listing is ready to go the instant your listing goes live. Meaning you have your photos done and ready, the listing is fully optimized, the promotions, coupons, and PPC campaigns are all ready to go. You don't want your listing to go live and you're not ready because you don't have your photos done yet or whatever. And second, a huge advantage to help you generate sales is to have social proof for your listing. Your listing gets social proof by having positive reviews, and the more the better. However, Amazon is very strict on how you can get these reviews and will take aggressive action against sellers that try to manipulate the review system. So what you can do to help get your initial reviews is by signing up for Amazon's early reviewer program. The early reviewer program costs $60, and this is where Amazon will help you get your first 5 reviews by offering incentives to your buyers to leave a review. You can also use the Vine program. This is where you can give a free product to a trusted reviewer in the Vine program, and they will leave a product review for you. This is the quickest way to get reviews, but it's only available to sellers with a registered brand. Now, another method is to send a follow-up email to your buyers by asking them to leave a review. This method doesn't work very well as most buyers have opted out from receiving emails, and Amazon actually already sends emails out for you asking your customers to leave a review. You'll also naturally get reviews just through your organic sales. However, the average sales to review ratio is only around 1%, meaning out of every 100 sales that you get, you might get 1 review. So if you're more risk tolerant, you can have your friends and family buy a product and then leave you a review, but just realize that if you get caught, you're putting your account health at risk. I'll leave a link in the video description below on how you can get reviews if you want to learn more about this. Okay, so that covers everything from start to finish. Remember, if you need to come back to review a specific part of starting your Amazon business, you can find timestamps to different chapters in the video description below. I've also left links there to everything that I discussed in the video as well. All right, and that's it. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can find all of my contact details in the video description below. I'd also love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment or a question in the comment section below. I answer every single one. And as always, if you found value in this video, consider subscribing. And do me a favor and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm, as it really does help me out and I appreciate it. And make sure to ring the bell so you never miss a future video. All right, thanks for watching.